Hey TikTok, it's Dr. Cunningham. I decided to pop up on TikTok today in order to address a particular dynamic that I've noticed over the course of not only my lifetime, but when I study history, has been a part of our history for many years. And that is the comparison between the male and female or masculine and feminine energy, and unfortunately the competition that happens between those genders. And dare I say, how there's been institutionalized power with consideration of masculine and or feminine energy. Now, as we are in a new era of time, there is a shift. Now, biblically, we've heard it, and usually people utilize the phrase that in the last days, the women will surpass the men. Even though that is not the exact quote that we find in the scripture, we do find, as we look toward the end of the scripture during the last days, that women start gaining equal levels of power as men. And that is in order to create a balance within our universe, because for many years, for many centuries, for many millennia, men have had the power with consideration of creating laws, institutionalizing particular narratives, dominant narratives that have been passed on through generations, through families, to the point where women have actually bought into the particular narratives and actually spread the information. Because technically here in America, there are a lot more women than there are men. However, females are also buying into this particular dynamic or dominant discourse that men should remain at the helm. Now, I'm not disagreeing with the structure. But the reason why I'm saying this as a caveat before I begin with sharing why I'm even posting this is because I just want you all to understand that I have knowledge with consideration of historical context and what's happening currently in our world with consideration of power and gender. So with that said, the other day I posted something on social media celebrating feminine leadership, celebrating feminine energy. Now, feminine energy is something that it could very well be in a male or a female. I'm recognizing the fact that I have leadership qualities that are both feminine and masculine. Yet, we always associate feminine and masculine with a particular gender. However, if we are to then focus on delineating feminine totally as a female and then masculine totally as a male, that still leads to this, dichotomy and this binary viewpoint with consideration of genders, and also how we are interacting with each other and considering who is supposed to be a worthy leader and who is not. Now, what I'll say is that I feel like how people responded, well, my opinion is, so I think that the way people responded really shows how much sexism still persists in the world we live in today. Because for me to celebrate a female or feminine energy and the leadership qualities of feminine energy, like compassion, like collaboration, like systemic thinking, to me is unfortunate when people are showing up and not just saying, wow, I'm so glad that you're celebrating feminine energy and females, but also they were responding with, well, why don't you include the dudes? What's wrong with men leadership? I never said there was anything wrong. Matter of fact, a lot of the guys that are friends of mine, a lot of the guys that I grew up and spent time with as an athlete, as a tomboy growing up, were guys. Now, I also love my sisters. I really appreciate my sisters and like to collaborate with my sisters who are about their business. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about positive, international, global, universal impact and that we can make here on this earth. And so with consideration of that, again, let's not automatically assume when you hear feminine or masculine that we are associating it totally 100% completely with a particular gender. Because again, as a female who is female, yet I still have a balance with consideration of feminine and masculine energy as a leader. Okay? So let's just start there. Now, also, with consideration of collaboration, I work with males and females. Now, historically, I find that a lot of the teams that I've been on have been very much so focused on men. Now, as the field of marriage and family therapy and the clinical field continues to develop and age over the course of decades and centuries at this point, there are a lot more women than there used to be. But a lot of our founders who started within these fields, even though I'm not a Freudian, Freud is a male, had a very male perspective. He was saying that women had diagnoses like hysteria just because they were dealing with aggy emotions while they were on their period and trying to hospitalize them in psychiatric hospitals. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's a caveat that we must always consider, which is our thoughts, are our perspectives biased in any way possible? And sometimes the answer is yes. But if all of us are aware of our biases, and then we're able to push our biases to the side and really focus on people as people and how we can connect based on our similarities and also celebrate our differences, then we find how much more we can actually get done and how much greater we can accomplish with consideration of what matters most. How can we improve the globe? What are we doing about the ailments, the social ailments, and the environmental ailments that we are considering now that are based on our own decisions over the course of centuries and millennia? Now, as innovation continues to move forward, let's also consider how our innovation impacts the earth, impacts each other as human beings, impacts our relationships, impacts our environment, for the sake of not only now, but the future. So what I am asking for is next time, if I celebrate a particular group, it's not just to say that that group matters only. It just means that that group matters as well, just as much. It's almost like the Black Lives Movement. Black Lives Matter. Why you only consider it Black Lives? Because it's more than just Black lives that matter. All lives matter. I want everyone to live and to live well. But we cannot negate the fact that Black lives have dealt with the greatest level of racism, not just in the United States, but across the globe, because there's such thing as the socially constructed black or white. Just based on skin tone and based on the African diaspora, whether you have family that has more of the African blood within the family lineage in comparison to someone else who has more of the Caucasus, blood in their family lineage. But if we're technically accurate, the reality is that all of us have at least some form of drop of African blood within us, because the oldest people that have been found on the earth are African. Okay? So, with consideration of all of this, can we please focus on what draws us together? What brings peace? What brings love? What brings joy amongst all of us? My hope is that there's a great level of leadership that brings great impact to our world in such a positive way, that people celebrate people for the qualities that they bring and not for the sake of whether they have a vagina or a penis. Okay, so you all have an excellent day. Happy Friday.